Welcome to In Difficult Times, a series of interviews with curious, inquisitive, and occasionally transcendent souls carving new paths through our current global crises. In the face of a global pandemic, economic crises, and struggles against oppression, inequality, and injustice, many folks around the world are looking for ways to make it through, to just get by in these difficult times. What can I do and what's next have indeed become popular questions. This broadcast is about sharing answers to those questions. In this series of interviews, we'll explore how folks are coping and even thriving with these challenges. And we will dig into what happens after the pandemic is over, whether this is a turning point in global history, and consider where humanity is heading. At the end of the day, this broadcast is about sharing ideas and connecting with good people like yourselves. Your hosts for this exploit are Paul Reed, working out of the UK, and Anthony Gilbert, operating in the American West. Now, we'll let them tell the rest of the story.
Hi, my name is Anthony Gilbert, and this is Paul Reed, and we are the hosts of In Difficult Times. Paul?
Good morning stroke afternoon, everyone. I qualify that greeting because I'm recording this from the southwest of the United Kingdom, and it's the afternoon, whereas Anthony is... Where are you, Anthony?
dead center of America, just outside of Denver, where it is 8 a.m.
And, so we're two guys who are attempting to present a range of subjects and materials from two different perspectives, from two different geographical locations and two different time zones.
With the hope that we can give back to the community a bit of usable information about how people are making their way through these difficult times.
So tell me, Anthony, what's it about? What's this series of podcasts that you're engaging with and you're dragging me through the mire? What's it about?
I want to clarify that this was his decision first. I was invited and then hung around. Well, what we're going to do in this podcast is hopefully find very interesting people who are making it through successfully. I mean, we're living in a time when there is not just a global pandemic, but there is global economic and environmental crises, as well as social crises, no doubt. All over the world, it seems like people are pushing back against old institutions. And not that we want to make this too political, but we do want to engage people where they are at.
Yes, undoubtedly. Where can we not relate to? Who isn't relating at the moment to the broader issues of healthcare? And that's something I think that will be underlying most of our conversations with everyone, particularly as this pandemic has brought to the surface the ideas of what do we mean by looking after ourselves and who's responsible for that, whether it's from a British perspective where we have a National Health Service, or from your perspective where how deep your pocket is determines the treatment that you get.
That's true. The healthcare system in America is very much based upon the notion that there's a social safety net, but it's not as good as the people who have money to pay for the doctors, no doubt. And I think as we're both mind-body practitioners, so we do have some sense of how you can engage in practices to maintain your own health. Not that I want to say that that's how you get past COVID, but it's one of many strategies people are using. And we're going to talk to some of those people and see how they're doing it.
Yes, and I think that's a great starting point for this series. And hopefully that will lead into several other big questions that we're looking at, one of which is the culture that's come out of this period that we're in, how we're dealing with the issues that are coming up, what's the language that's helping us understand those problems and overcome them, how do we relate to each other, and the importance, once again, I come back to this idea that on the surface we share a language, but underneath it, through the discussions that we continuously have, we discover layers of diversity in our approach to handling the big questions that come up. And one of the things I'd like this series to do is to explore that diversity with as many people as possible from different corners of the globe.
Indeed. Let's face it, the politics in America are very different than the politics that are happening in England, which are very different than the politics that are happening, say, South Africa or China, Hong Kong, for one. And we hope to speak with people in all of these areas. We'll start probably close to home with people that we know, and then over time branch out and make connections so that we can present a global approach to dealing with difficult times.
And finally, there's this concept that we can't avoid. Again, we've looked at health, we're looking at education and culture, and we're looking at the packaging that it all comes into now, this digital world in which we inhabit. In fact, this very podcast is going to be recorded on Zoom, etc., distributed through Spotify, etc. So we're engaged with this world, and how it's shaping those conversations is something that I'm hoping we both get an opportunity to explore with our guests too.
Well, we've been doing this together. Paul and I have probably at least a decade of time under our belt working in unison. And then before that, we met early on when I used to host a magazine called Into Mountains Over Streams, and Paul was one of the early contributors to that. And we've been maintaining a dialogue on culture and politics and health and the digital age for close to a damn decade now. So I think,
and exploring how we sometimes see things so differently and how we sometimes see things the same. It's been a very interesting path to take. Yep. And yes, let's see how we can take that out even further, more globally, and discover. So that's our sort of, I suppose, our background. I mean, very briefly, for those that have no idea who we are, I suppose I should mention that I've been involved in martial arts and Tai Chi and health fields for most of my life, and culture and writing and video creation. And what about yourself, Anthony?
Well, published my first book at 21, so I've been writing for quite a while now. 5 books in. I've taught Tai Chi and Qigong, Aikido and Judo over the years. That's my martial arts background. Zen Buddhism under Peter Matheson back in the 80s. And, most recently a deep dive into Taoism. So yeah, that's pretty much my path through all of this. And again, from an educational standpoint, as an educator, I teach university, and I've been playing with these things in that environment as well. Yeah.
And just to balance all of that, I haven't studied with anyone that no one will know, or no names to drop into this. And I'm more than likely, as Anthony comes up with some choice quote from some renowned author on a subject, to make something up that's completely nonsense, just to keep it all in balance.
And that's perfectly okay.
So when's the first episode coming out, Anthony? And have you got any, can we reveal who these guests might be yet?
Oh, I don't think we can reveal the guests just yet, but let's say in the months and weeks to come, podcast will be dropping, and Paul and I hope to build enough momentum to keep this going for quite a while. So listen, if you're out there and you're interested, drop us a line. Contact information will be below. And if you have questions, like if there are questions as a listener, as a participant in this digital dialogue that we're going to have, which, is probably going to be a bit crazy at times, as professional as we can make it, but not adhering to any set of rules, but hopefully authentic and hopefully usable. We want to give you usable information, but we also need to hear from you as the listener and as the reader. The viewer. Send us questions and we'll pass them through the people that we speak with, and we'll see if we can get you some answers.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not useful, the information, then we're just, we're wasting our time really here. So the idea is to extract from these conversations pointers that will actually be practical in some very ordinary, everyday, useful sense, rather than some theoretical possible application in some environment. So these are our ideas to bring it down to the street level, if you like. Street Tai Chi is going to be the approach, and street Qigong and street Taoism.
Street Taoism, yes, we're very much on the level here. So at some point, we'll say this again, but there will, excuse me, we will not sell you anything. There is not going to be an upcharge. At no point will you receive an email from us saying, listen, for $9.99, you can have X. I'm not going to try to sell any of my books. Paul's not going to try to sell his videos. None of our guests will be selling anything. This is all just for you, the listener.
Yeah, I mean, that's the idea. In a world in which almost everything has a price tag attached to it, we're trying to do something to counter that and show that there is still meaningful content out here on the web. As both Anthony and I have said to each other very often, as the web was meant to be, this sharing of useful information around the globe without trying to twist your arm to sign up to some future purchase. So that's the plan.
Mm-hmm. And we will not have, just say this right off the bat, we will not have any of the more well-known masters. There's a long list of people who will not be on this podcast. We're not going to list it because we don't need a lawsuit right off the bat. But we're going to talk with authentic people who are on the street, in the streets, people who are trying to help, not people who are trying to sell things. That's the main key point I want to get across.
Yeah. And this is just the trial, the taster episode, just to let you know what's coming up and to encourage you to follow the podcast and to tell us if there's anything that we can try and answer on your behalf in the ensuing months.
Yes.
Okay, then.
So we're going to leave it to that. Check back in a week or so, and we'll have a new podcast up. Be well.
Be well, everyone. Thank you for your attention.
Take care.
This has been In Difficult Times. We thank you for lending us your attention. It's a small yet appreciated gift, and we wish you well in the days and months ahead.